As we head towards our first quiz here in our new unit, one more section that we need to take care of, or half a section, and that's dealing with parallel and perpendicular lines. We did the parallel last time we got together. Slope is the same. We pick a point, we plug it in, we get an answer. There's going to be one slight difference today. So for those of you that were rolling on Friday, you're going to keep right on rolling. And if you weren't rolling Friday, well, we have an excellent opportunity for you to get some things worked out and get situated. So we're going to move down a little further here on page 3. And we're going to deal with what are called perpendicular lines. Okay? Now, again, it depends on who you talk to, the way this is going to be worded. But here's the way I'm going to word this. So perpendicular lines have negative reciprocal slopes. You're like, okay, what? So a negative reciprocal means, since our slope is a fraction, that when we have a perpendicular line, we're going to take that slope, it's going to become negative, the negative part, and then we're going to flip the fraction, which is what the reciprocal part is. So maybe it would be a good idea. We'll put flip underneath it, but we're going to see some numbers here in a minute that I think are going to help along with that. So, just like we did last time, we're going to calculate our slope of the two lines that were given, and then we can see what this negative reciprocal thing means. So, if we're dealing with line AB, we're counting from one point to the other with our rise and run. So we're going to go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we went up 6. And we went right 1, 2, which is also positive. But as we have said multiple times before, if we can reduce our fraction, you're like, wait a minute, Hardy. Now how, definitely don't need that graph right now. 6 divided by 2 is 3, okay? And I just like to make my slope, bless you, a fraction, especially in this case, but having the whole number wouldn't be wrong. And so then when I go to do my other one, CD, I went down 1 and write 1, 2, 3. But I went 3 to the right, so that's positive. So when we talk about something being a negative reciprocal, what it means is, again, one's positive, one's negative. Got that part. But notice I took my 3 over 1 and I flipped it. I took my reciprocal. That's always the relationship that perpendicular lines are going to have. One's just the negative flip of the other. So, when we're going to write the equation of a line, just like we did last time, the goal is to get this into slope-intercept form that is perpendicular to the line 2x plus 4. So I have to see my slope. My slope in the original problem is 2 over 1. So my perpendicular slope, that's what this little upside down t is, my perpendicular. I'm going to flip the fraction over, and I'm going to change the sign. So if this would have been negative, this would be positive, and vice versa. But we always flip the fraction. And then my point they gave me right there That's my x1 and my y1, just like it was back on Friday. And just like on Friday as well, I'm plugging numbers into those three spots. And now it's just substitution, basically. So we're going to do y minus, there's my y1, -2, equals m by -1/2, x minus, there's my x1. So, a couple things to take note of. What happens again when you minus a negative? It makes it plus. So we're going to make that y plus 2. And over here, no panics necessary. We're going to distribute, we're going to multiply that -1/2 through. So -1/2 x, negative times negative is positive, and half of 6 is 3, if you're not sure again on a fraction sometime. Because it's negative times negative. If you want to do the fraction multiplying and you're not confident, just make sure that you put the fraction part in parentheses. And then we'll still end up in the right spot. And so now the only job left is to get y alone, which is to take care of that plus 2. And as we mentioned several times on Friday, we've got to make sure that that 2 in this case that we're subtracting, or whatever it is, that we take it away from the number part. Don't take it away from the x. And once you do, we're set. And that's it. Plug the numbers in, move a few things around, get that value. So keep this close, because again, as we're working on a couple of the worksheet ones, this may be helpful to kind of pull back in here. So in comes our newly found sheet from the back here for today. I'm even going to write practice on it since it's not in the practice packet. So determine whether the pair of lines are parallel, perpendicular, or neither. So, as we do this, we're basically want to write one more thing up here. We want to make sure our equation is in y equals before we start doing this, because if it's not alone, we'll check one of these out too. We need to fix that first. So when I'm here, and I'm kind of looking, and I'm like, okay, again, your slope is always the number in front of x, once it's y equals. And I'm always going to make mine a fraction. Now, here's where life gets interesting. Are these two the same? No. Not parallel. Are they negative? Negative reciprocals. Now, you may at first be like, yeah, then you're like, wait a minute. This is the flip of this. These are reciprocals. But is one positive and one negative? Nope, so it's not that. So this one would end up being neither. Now, let's change it up a little bit. Let's play with number 5. So number 5, you're like, okay, that's in y equals. So that one I can get my slope right away. But the second part, y isn't alone yet. So a couple things to mention on the second one. If we don't see a number in front of x, there's a 1 there. And so we got to undo this plus 1x. So we need to move that to the other side of my equation. But as we mentioned on Friday, it's important that the x term is always the first thing right after the y equals. So when I'm doing this, that negative 1x needs to come first, and the positive 12 needs to come after it. I don't want to mix up the order, and I really don't want to do, 11x, okay, or something like that. This has x, this doesn't. I can't do that. But y is not quite ready. So I'm going to divide everything by 4. And I'm going to be cautious here because my brain might be telling me, well, 1 divided by 4 is 4. But that's 4 divided by 1. So if I do negative 1 divided by 4, I get a decimal. Math, enter, enter. So that stays the same. But 12 divided by 4 is 3. Now y is alone. Now I can get my slope. And I look, they're not the same, so they're not parallel. Are these reciprocals of each other? Yes. I flip 4 over 1, I get 1 over 4. Is one positive and one negative? Yes. So these are perpendicular. So the last one I want to play with you on up here is going to be number 4, because I want you to see a little of everything. First one's in y equals. So there's my m. Oh, we're not in y equals yet here, though. What's my one step to get this into y equals? Divide. So we're going to divide by 3. Again, if we're not sure if something simplifies, just type it in. If it goes decimally, just leave it alone. And if your slopes are the same at this point, they're parallel. So those are the 3 options. They're the same, they're parallel. If they're negative reciprocals, if I flip one and one's negative and one's positive, they'd be perpendicular. And if it covers none of the above, it's going to be neither. And so, similar to what we again saw also Friday, want to make sure we kind of cover our bases here. So here's the treehouse beams again. We talked about how it's important that these beams are in the right direction or our treehouse could fall down on us. We're given 2 points. We do not have a picture. So here, we get those down, and then we're going to follow our slope formula. I'm just going to write that down here. It's always nice to have it convenient and ready. And then I just got to make sure I follow it. So y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And again, watch for those negatives and things. That can kind of mess some stuff up. So 8 minus 2 is 6. Got that part. Again, here, minus and negative is plus, but if you forget, typing it into the calculator exactly as you see it, you can still get to the right answer. So my slope here is 6 over 5. And I'm going to do the same thing follow the same formula to find my slope of ST. So let's see, y2 minus y1, x2 minus x1. Let's see here. Minus and negative is going to make that plus, but in case I didn't see that, oh, now here's the moment of truth, though. Because I'm like, okay, negative 5 divided by negative 6. Okay, I got a decimal, so I must leave it. But notice something. Negative divided by negative is positive. I have to be aware of that. Because when I look at my two slopes now, we're being asked if they're perpendicular. Are they negative reciprocals of each other? And in this case, that answer would be no. Because they're not negative reciprocals. They are reciprocals. We got that part. But they're not. One's negative and one's not. They're both positive. So, little detail thing there. Little bit of an explanation. It doesn't have to be real deep. I mean, no negative reciprocals. That's 3 words. I think we can knock that out okay and kind of see how things are going with that. So, again, over here, it's looking to see which one of those 3 things it's going to be, but nothing else complex as far as, having to do a bunch of extra work. So, one last piece to the puzzle here. Over on the back, I want to chat 2 of these. Okay, get the equation into slope-intercept form. Drill this in till it's going. And what I'm actually going to do, I'm going to jump over to number 11. Because here it's got all the listings for you, and I just want to list one for you without all the extra stuff going on here. So I'm going to label my x1 and y1. So my first job is I got to figure out what my slope is going to be. But remember, we're looking for perpendicular this time. So my slope, flip it, change the sign. Okay, so it was positive 1/4. I flip it to 4 over 1, make it negative 4. And here, if you want to put it just back into plain old negative 4, because you don't like the fraction, that's okay. That's not a problem. But once you get there, the job becomes, okay, x1, y1, and again, slope is just a fancy way of doing m. So I'm going to follow this. So, y minus, there's my y1. Oh dear. Crazy pen. Equals m x minus x1. And a couple of the detail things that we've seen before, we're going to see again here. Again, minus and negative makes this plus. I'm just going to rewrite that quick. So minus and negative there becomes plus. This is my goal. So notice there's no parentheses with that. So I got to multiply. I got to distribute. And again, if the goal is to get to y equals, we just got to undo that one step that's with y. And once we get to y equals, we're done. So that's the same thing being done on 10. I just kind of gave you some guidance the first time through to try and figure some of those things out. Last one. Because 15's weird. We chatted about the weird ones Friday, but let's chat again. If you get y equals, or if you get x equals, here's where we got to be a little more cautious. We're going to draw a little picture here for a minute. So let's say that this is y equals negative 3. When we have two things that are perpendicular, we haven't mentioned this yet, they form a right angle. So if you have a y equals line, you're going to have an x equals line that goes with it to form the right angle. So, if you have y equals negative 3, and I see I have to have an x equals, all you're going to need to do is go to your coordinate point, find the x value, and make the equation, and you're done. Okay, again, the only time you get to do this is if it's just plain old x or y equals in a number. So if this would have been x equals negative 3, I'd have pulled the 7, and I'd have put y equals 7, because that's the only way I can get a perpendicular value to work on this particular one. So be cautious. Be cautious as you're working through these to make sure. That's not going to happen very often, though. Most of them are going to be normal. All the rest of them on this page are normal. And I'll make one last reminder. If you don't see a number in front of x, reminder it's 1. And I can make a fraction out of that. I can still flip that and make it bigger. So with that, I'm going to step away. Keep the notes out with this, though. If you need some assistance, give me just a moment, and I will be perfectly willing to run by and help out as best I can. But that's